facing are small ones. And I wish that we could, get the fast answers that we're hoping for. But I don't think you can expect the fast answers, because the capacity for us, I said it yesterday that my disappointment a lot of times with our movement and our pace is that we don't see ourselves as great. But with tourism, I looked at tourism's plan yesterday, and I had some time to sleep on it, some time to meditate on tourism's plan. Looking at tourism's plan, and I'm putting it in air quotes, and tourism's plan, it was informative. They got data, right? In today's paper, there was an article talking about how we are second most appealing to Americans. And that is, encouraging. But then I ask this question, as we look at this tourism model, are Bahamians finding Americans appealing? Are we excited for that business? And I mean, I don't know how you do this. This is one of those things where the government, I got to give them credit. They are really trying, I don't know how you do this. If I was sitting there and I would sit in the House of Assembly and I'd wonder, how do you do this? How do you measure how much risk you're willing to take for the economy, right? Because economically, because you're looking at a smaller group of people getting sick, but we know one of the major comorbidities is obesity. And we are one of the most obese countries in the region, right? So maybe because we're mitigating, because we're doing what we're doing, because the economy is shut down, there aren't many tourists, we're not letting in that many sick people with COVID-19. Maybe that's why we haven't seen such a large outbreak in COVID-19. Whereas though in our size, it's really relative to call what we have small. It is definitely large based on our size, but how much of this could how much of all of this process, if you were a government, you're looking at life of my citizens, health of my citizens, the structure of my facilities, are my facilities able or capable? Does it have the capacity to deal with these issues? And then you're looking at the economy. How long can we run this way? We have to open up the government. Then what are our mitigation processes and procedures? One of the challenges, I have a friend, Bahamian fellow, lives in Canada. He has to come back home, right? He has to come back home to finish up some business and then go back to his new home in Canada. And one of the challenges is that though Air Canada has a once a week flight to and from the Bahamas, that where he is, it takes about 14 days to get the test results back. So there is a lag where he is in Canada, right? That's a market space. But the 5-year timeline that we're requiring, which is a safe requirement, which is a sensible requirement, would by all aspects and stretch of the imagination prohibit anyone from Canada coming in. So then the safety or the health parameters is affecting the tourism issue, the tourism need. And so that's where do we then adjust? This is tough stuff, big questions that you have to ask. Do you adjust the mitigations or the protocols or procedures for the district? Are you talking with your ambassadors? Because this is where I think foreign affairs would be helpful with getting your ambassadors and your consulates on the ground to tell you these pertinent bits of information. Because I don't believe that you can blanket it for every city. We know where people are coming from or wanting to come from. Do we have something different for different airports? I mean, I guess America's America, so I don't know if you can change it up for airports, but, do we have different styles or protocols for different locations? And it's tough. It's tough, y'all. It's tough. I do believe, regardless of what ilk, every Bahamian wants this country to succeed. We have to get out of this. It doesn't matter if you're extremely wealthy, if all of your stocks, well, not all of your stocks, because we know the extremely wealthy don't have all of their stocks or eggs in this basket. But if they live here, they're vested here, their name is here, if they're the landlords of the Bahamas, even if they live behind the gates, they may not be suffering like you and I. But I assure you Their power rests on their abundance. You can't go into a room of wealthy people, be the least wealthy, and then hope that you will, get or gain what you wish to get or gain. And that's where it becomes an interesting proposition. That's when it becomes an interesting proposition. How they will have to put their money where their mouth is. They will have to begin to see how best they can make this country successful, because their wealth, their power is embedded in this country. So those are things that we have to be mindful of, that I think every Bahamian wants this country to succeed, needs it to succeed. We all have to be allies in this space. We have to be allies in this space. If we're not allies in this space, then it's a waste of time. So as we look out, I mean, at some point, I'm going to have to give these guys a break. I'm going to have to give them a break. I'm giving them a break, this administration a break right now, only because I really don't think that I really don't know if they can do better. Funny thing though. And when I say I don't know if they can do better, I'm not saying that better can't happen. I'm just saying I don't think that they can do better, right? It's like, you know your limitations. That was their limitation. They have limitations. And we as a people all have our limitations. And I feel as if they've reached their max capacity. That's what we're seeing here. And, when you see a child has reached their max capacity, do you keep trying to force them to be 4.0? Or do you get to a place, how do I help this child to be the best child that they can be at the space where they are at their max capacity, right? Once you figured out where the max is, which, I mean, listen, there's no max until you're dead, right? Like you can keep growing and growing and growing. But at some point you got to realize that my child is not a 4.0 child. I've tried everything. They've tried everything. That's just impossible. Not everybody can get everything right, Don't watch the Joneses and think that the Joneses are the standard. Watch your own house and determine the standard there. So some people just won't be 4.0 students. A lot of us aren't 4.0 students. Quite a bit of us aren't 3.0 students. And so maybe this administration has reached its max capacity. And to continue in because personally I'm exhausted. I can't, come on now, we can't keep beating the dead horse. I think that there are many brilliant people within our government structure and system. I look forward to what is to come. I agree with Minister Diagala in that we have to, take the bull by the horn and determine right away that we are going to deal with tourism. We have to open it up. We have to figure out how to exist. And we've been saying this for a long time. And one of the things that he said that I also appreciate was that, hey, listen, this time we have to get it right. And I know that the minister, I'm sure that he, after being burnt the last time with a lockdown, after, what was alleged to be ultimatums given to the competent authority, that this time we have to get it right. This time we have to make sure that our space in the world is seen with a better light, under a better microscope. This time we have to be smarter. So as a nation, we have to be smarter, but tourism can't be the only horse we're riding. Tourism can't be the only horse in the race. And so for most of us, you've got to realize that tourism will not be itself. Note that when the hotels open, they will not be at full capacity. We need to figure out if they'll be at 50% capacity. We need to be realistic in knowing that there may be a lag, not maybe, there will be a lag. The US economy, which is predominant in our model, our tourism model, has to heal and get healthy. Worse, it is going through an election year. The stringent policies on testing and travel will affect Canadians. And we should have been, it's Christmas time, winter, all of the places that are cold and snowing, what is our campaign to get them here? And I think that we also have to be mindful of some places should have different rules. Some places should have different regulations. If you can't come from Alberta or Edmonton, Alberta, because it takes 14 days to get a test, they're worse than us apparently. then that's a whole crew of people who won't be coming. What about in Toronto? What have we learned about that area? This is where foreign affairs, all of our consulates, all of our ambassadors would give us better intel to determine how do we get that market. But we have to be realistic, y'all. Tourism is not our bread and butter right now, not in the short term, right? We're looking at a 4-year turnaround, probably, is estimated. That's a long time. Can you wait that long? Here is where we must now pivot, and the ministry, the government must be intentional with its pivot. This is where we must now start talking about how do we grow from a people that are labor intensive, a model that is labor intensive, to one that is intellectually stimulated, that the one that is an intellectually intensive. So the market moves from the body to the mind. Which market can we export, right? Because otherwise you're going to see a massive exodus of people who have the intellectual capacity to leave, and you're left with a labor force continually being a labor force. This is when you're supposed to see the National Training Agency, the NTA, announcing already new programs that are not tourism dependent, new programs that would bolster. Right now, there should be a massive IT program sales pitch with BTVI and UB. Synergy involved in that, where we're talking about, okay, listen, we've talked about being a tech hub. We've talked about being this leading in the region in technology. Well, we are going to center a lot of our focus, because last time we checked, Grand Bahama Hotel still not sold, okay? Still not sold. And that selling wouldn't even mean business happening. It's just construction work then. And construction work will be done. And I guarantee you, people who are spending money are looking to spend money which is bringing back return on investment. What is the return on investment with a hotel in Grand Bahama? But Grand Bahama will be one of the slower islands unless there is a plan by the administration, one of the slower islands to catch itself financially. So I'm waiting for 4 years for healthy New Providence and Exuma and maybe Eleuthera. But what is the timeline for Grand Bahama? Because nobody gives you a timeline for Grand Bahama. Nobody tells you, we're not hearing what is the strategic plan with Grand Bahama. We have yet to hear it, years and years, decades upon decades, not hearing a strategic plan. We hear one idea, we're gonna sell this, we're gonna build that. But what is the strategic plan for Grand Bahama? So if I'm Royal Caribbean, I'm looking at this one asset, this one property that right now isn't an asset, unless I get it dirt cheap, which we will sell it dirt cheap. You thought we got a bad deal before? I guarantee you with the negotiations that was spoken of by the Minister of Tourism, this is an even cheaper deal now. You think we spent 65 before and only getting 30? If that doesn't drop to 20, or with other concessions, or maybe a plot of land in Paradise Island as a giveaway to Royal Caribbean, and my poor friend Toby Smith being shoved in the corner because he's not wealthy enough, you got another thing coming. Because the Wynn Group left Grand Bahama and left us holding the bag with the hotel. But before they did that, Hutchison Whampoa, who was making money hand over fist, abandoned that project and made us pay for it. So listen, when I tell you there's no strategic plan. Now, with that said, no strategic plan for a Grand Bahama, then what is this, unless we start looking and intentionally changing or adding to ourselves? And these things aren't short, but they're intentional. What can you do in 2 years if you're intentional with IT infrastructure and education? What can you do in 2 years? How long does it take to negotiate for businesses to come to the Bahamas? What do businesses need to come to the Bahamas and be a tech space? Where are your Bahamian technologists? That isn't the word I wanted, but IT technicians. Where are they? Are they able to come from all around the world and put their mind at ease? Can we still use the goodwill from Dorian to help build infrastructure, to help build the Caribbean's first all IT school, so that now from across the Caribbean, we're getting the best minds in IT to teach, to be professors all across the hemisphere, this hemisphere, getting some of the best minds to teach, and then getting enrollments for the school. What are we trying to do? Education, we can lead in that. We had the hotel training college. We could lead in that. We should have been teaching how to fold and make up beds for the cruise ships, and all of the Filipinos get training here versus in Miami. We should have been that place. But then there's so much xenophobia. You see a bunch of foreign folk and you panic. And only because we're fighting for the pie, that's only one. So there's so much to this model that has us all verklempt, you know, so has us all caught up in our hands and our fists clenched and closed. Because there's never been a spirit of abundance here. It's always been a spirit of lack, always been where I have to be F&M or PLP to make some money. I have to pick a side. I have to be at enmity with someone else in order to be successful somewhere else, where I don't have to earn my place. I just need to know someone. That spirit is what has caused all of this. That spirit is what has left us without any ideas, because we weren't training generations with hope and inspiration and aspiration, because we weren't building anything. We were managing. And so now we have a Dorian effect, a COVID-19 effect, where our leaders are not creators. They're not innovators. They're not open to have others say, listen, this is the open hand and arm effect. Then worse, we as a people, we panic when we hear about folks coming in. Now, I have issues with the commercial enterprise zone. $250,000 can get you land in a business and residency. That's all you need, $250,000 to get a special piece of land. But Bahamians can't even get their first home for $250,000. Anyway, so we have to, the country has to shift the model of tourism. We're going to have a lag. So then what? Now we know that. Now what? Now that we know that, now and then what? And any administration that seeks to be in power, any party that wishes to lead us in 2022 must have more than saying, well, I don't want to give you my ideas right now because, they steal it. What level of that always bothers me, An idea stolen, does there no record of you saying it? Are you saying the idea in private? If you're a government, say the idea out aloud. If you're the government, you don't get the right to say, well, if you say your ideas, people steal it. You are the government. When you say it, it is. If you are a small party or a new party, say it. It's a part of your platform. Say it. Own it. Put your copyright on it. But no one gets the fact to tell us that they've got a plan, but they can't tell us for fear of someone stealing their plan. That isn't, it makes no sense. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, everyone needs to debate and show us their intellectual capacity. And not just the members of parliament, but we want those key players for each government. You have your shadow ministers for the Progressive Liberal Party. Those shadow ministers should be, debating the ministers today in a debate. Whoever will be the cabinet ministers or the proposed cabinet ministers for 2022 by this present government should be debated by the shadow ministers for each party. In the DNA, in the PLP, and the other smaller groups. Because at this point, y'all, we should not be talking about who is just the leader. We need to be arguing ideas, transformational. We cannot afford 4 years. We can't afford 4 months more of where we are economically. And there is a pivot needed. When we come back, I have a young gentleman joining me today, because some of the things that I'm learning and I'm dealing with now in my personal life are all related to information technology, all related. There's no part of my life at this point where I'm looking in the future that is not related to information technology. And it is imperative that we understand the value of data. In this season, there are groups collecting data. This data is the basis of all that we can be. Who holds the data holds the power. And how important is it to protect your data? How important is it to look at the infrastructure of the Bahamas and realize that we are nowhere? Our status in the world can be directly related to the fact that we've got a government website that when you go to the government website, it tells you that you should stop moving here, stop going to this site, it is not secure. I don't even know what to say to that. That's a basic problem in web design, it's a basic situation in web design. Basic purchases that are recurring, I don't even know how we get there. And I'm floored. But you're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. When we come back, my special guest will be joining us. We'll be back right after this on Guardian 96.9 FM.
Beulah gal, can you believe this? We are now the patrol queens of the neighborhood.
We now large and in charge. So we need to check out what's going on in everybody's yard. What about that gun that we know that Junior and his homeboys just ran out? Can we report that too?
Of course we can.
But we could be in deep trouble if they find out.
We need to report what we see, Beulah. When you call Crime Stoppers, they just answer your call in Miami.
So then we can report everything? Guns, where they hiding the drugs, who shoot who part of which gang, or who disturbing the peace with the loud music and the motorcycles.
Then our neighborhood will be the best in the Bahamas, and everybody gonna want to come live here. And then our house price will go up, gal.
So what we waiting on? What's the number?
If you see something, say something. Let us all pitch in and stop the crime before it's your time. Call 328-8477 from Nassau or 242-300-8477 from the Family Islands. Or text us through the Crack Crime Bahamas app. Stop the crime before it's your time.
Sheila, you okay? I see smoke coming from your window.
Trev, Johnny Mo's burning down the house frying chicken.
Your kitchen is a mess. You have insurance?
If I have insurance, I pulled my phone out, pull up the Royal Star Insurance app, and in no time, I was on live chat with the RSA rep. Sent pics of the damage, filed my claim on the spot.
Wow, I don't think my insurance got that kind of.
You got to go to RSA for that.
Download the RSA app today. Live chat available weekdays 9 to 5.
And we're back. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. Okay, guys, so we're talking about a bit about data collection, data protection, security, etc. I did a show about this a few weeks ago with the Bahamas Clearing Banks Association. And it proved to be quite an interesting show. We had quite a bit of people who wanted to know more about it, but content is a very important thing, and I'm excited to have the young man that I have on now. And of course, you all know that my guru of all things tech, though, is C. Alan Johnson. I love that dude, and he will be joining me online soon. And to all of my friends and who are IT professionals, I know that there is another show that we're planning on doing. We've got a show on cryptocurrencies. We've got a show on pretty much what are digital currencies. So we have to deal with that as well. But without further ado, I've got Adnan Cartwright on the show. Adnan, how are you?
I'm well, Nahaja, and you?
Listen, I can't complain, my brother. I can't complain. It's 2020, and I don't know what else to say, bro. 2020 has been a year, so I need some technical experience, some technical know-how to get through 2020. All right, so you ready?
Ready.
All right, let's talk about data, right? Data is by far paramount, right? By far paramount. I think data is probably one of the greatest gifts, and the way that we now collect data has changed over the years. I want you to help me understand and help my listeners understand what is so important about data collection and data protection. I know before that, when I talk about data, what is it?
Data is pieces of information that is valuable or created by any entity, whether it be personal or business-like. It can be simple stuff as your name, your street address. It can be your children's name. It can be the school that they go to. It can be your telephone number, your email address. It can be where you work, etc.
All right. And so now when we talk about data collection, right? Data collection and data security. Why is that information? Why does that information need to be protected?
When you say the information needs to be protected, you're thinking of in terms of specific entities. So let's scale it down a little bit. If I work, say, for XYZ company, and our sole responsibility is to ensure that credit card information is secure, then the collection of said credit card information needs to be protected according to regulatory standards and compliance. Merely when you look at it, you're thinking of it in terms of PCI. Now, the reason why you want to secure that is because you have individuals like me who are what we call the black hats. I'm what you would call a white hat when it comes down to ethical hacking.
Yeah.
Our responsibility is to first and foremost get validation to attempt to penetrate the network. Once we have that validation, we do sign a non-disclosure agreement to discuss that, hey, what we find doesn't go any further than where it needs to go. Our job at that point then is to bring out all of our wonderful tools and realistically go at it. If you look at one of the projects I had the privilege of working on with Citibank in the United States, our responsibility was to actually hack the network and find vulnerabilities so that we can address it with the web team as well as with the security operations team. So
hold on. So what you're saying, Adnan, is that your job was to hack into supposedly secure systems.
Correct.
You would be the independent IT person. You're the independent firm.
Correct.
Right? And I want to stick to that point there because I think this is something that's very important that you're sharing so that people can understand what is going on. Because you call yourself a white hat, right? So you're an ethical hacker.
Correct.
By degree.
Correct.
Right? So you're an ethical hacker. And when you go through this process of hacking into a website like Scotiabank abroad, what are you looking for? What type of vulnerabilities?
At a high level, what I'm looking for is open ports. Now, industry has done a great job in terms of securing what we call 443 communication. Typically, when you go to a website, let's use Best Buy for an example. In the upper left-hand corner, when it comes down to providing any sensitive information, you see a lock there. That lock pretty much gives you the confirmation that the communication between your computer and that website at the current time, it's encrypted, meaning that there's bidirectional communication that nobody can intercept. Now, what we tend to do, we look to breach that tunnel with what we call as a man-in-the-middle attack. And how we end up getting that information is based on cookies. Now, cookies are an old trade that if you're smart enough or skillful enough, you can utilize some cryptography type style of an attack that when you go to a website, you notice nowadays that a website will state that, hey, we use cookies.
Mm-hmm. They have to say it now, right?
Correct. So what that cookie information does, it stores your web traffic in terms of what site you went to, how long you were in that site, what you did on that site, what you purchased on that site, and all of the information that was entered within plain text. So your name, your address, your telephone number, your email address.
And this is what cookies. This is what
This is
cookies
what-
store.
This is what cookies store.
Dang, I didn't realize it stored so much.
Yeah, and so what that does, the cool thing about it, right, is that if you hop from browser to browser, like what so many people do,
Yeah.
they use Firefox, they use Chrome. I dare put Microsoft Edge browser in the Internet Explorer. You now have 4 different categories of browsers now storing information of cookies, and that's beaming that data to the individuals who are actually collecting it. Now, here's the unique part of it, right? It doesn't only track your status or your progress within that current website. Everywhere that you go, it collects that information. So we deem that term data mining. And that gets beamed to Facebook is a huge collector. Twitter is a huge collector. Instagram is a huge collector. Go ahead.
Hold on, Adnan. What you're saying is, okay, so hold on. Let me just make sure I caught what you said just now. And it's so funny. Nobody can see me raising my hand to ask you a question. So are you saying that when I go to a website, because now, you travel the internet, you go to a website, every website now says to me, we collect cookies. Do you want to proceed? Accept or, no thanks, right? Most times I say no thanks, except if this is something I really want to see or read. And I say, well, okay. And they might give you an option to see where, to read where, the data is going. But who reads all of that fine print? Like,
exactly.
Really? And so you're saying that this information is given to social media platforms?
Correct.
How? Are they asking for it?
No.
No? Uh-oh. I think we lost Adnan. Oh, there you are.
Yeah. We actually have TLS, or the Transport Layer Security Protocol, that sends that information back and forth.
Really? Really?
Yes.
So I'm trying to figure out, how does my Amazon shopping or get to Facebook? Or how does my visiting Washington Post with their cookies get to Facebook?
Okay, so this is where you have to be concerned about where things are free. The browser's free, right?
Yep.
You're using their browser, right?
Yep.
So by the end user license agreement, or the EULA, you accepted those terms just by use.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
It's in the fine print. And you had made a comment that you said that you selected no to them collecting cookies. But if you read further down within the end user license agreement, they still collect the cookies.
Are you serious?
Yes. So the only way that you can prevent or possibly slow down cookie collection in terms of data is utilizing what are called in private sessions or incognito browsing.
Oh, that's why you use incognito. I thought that is for people who was cheating.
No, it stores literally nothing on your computer. So there's still information being transferred, but only for that one particular session. So if I connect to, say, Facebook, and I use in private browsing, and I keep that browser open, like how we have a bunch of tabs across the screen, it will collect as much information as it can during that entire session. Only until that session closes, the communication in itself stops.
Adnan Cartwright here with us. Okay, Adnan, let me ask you this then. As an end user, as someone who is not unethical, as someone who, all I care about is I don't want to find out there's another Nahaja Black somewhere in Germany going crazy, spoofing me. I don't want that, right? So, you try your best to just be as cognizant as possible, but I never realized, or I didn't think in my view that cookies on the internet would be so dangerous, since almost every website uses cookies, right? I mean, so how dangerous is it to, surf the web right now and, accept cookies or the use of cookies from a website? What should I do? Should it only be incognito? And then how bad is it with the cookies session stuff?
So what I would do or what I do in real world, I use in private sessions. And I keep my tasks as separate as possible. So that's the reason why I have 4 different browsers on my computer. So I'll have an in private session in Edge, an in private session in Internet Explorer, an incognito session is what is called in Chrome, and then another in private session in Firefox. Now, the reason why I have these 4 actually spread across so vastly is because I pretty much service different entities. And in servicing those different entities, I can't have the sessions collide.
Servicing different entities, meaning professionally, your business.
Correct.
Okay.
So I utilize Edge for one, Firefox, Google, and Internet Explorer for the other.
So, and this is where my mind is thinking. So I do a bit of, web design and maintenance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've never thought of doing any of my web design or maintenance in an incognito session. I've never thought of it.
Well,
All I do is make sure that the site's protected, but should I be doing all of this in incognito? Is the SSL cert good enough?
The SSL cert is for initiating that communication, right?
Yeah.
Over the HTTPS protocol. All that does is says that, hey, whatever I'm going to enter here that is sensitive information that is deemed by the industry, credit card information, social security information, and not even, that when it enters the form and you submit the form, it goes into an encryption state, right? Nobody can see it. Now, when you're connecting to your site and you're developing your code, are you utilizing a web browser to do such a thing?
Yeah.
Then that web browser needs to be in an in private session. And then what you also need to do from a business perspective, there's code that you can implement. It's a little bit of JavaScript that when you right click the page, it gives you an option across all browsers that says view page source. And when you do that, it'll give you all of the code that pertains to that page.
Yep.
So it's essential from a business perspective now that we're speaking of, that when you write your code, it's as clean as possible with, of course, parameters and variables defined, defining your function. That way you're not giving up sensitive information in that regard.
Yeah. And there's a lot of backdoors, man. There's a lot of backdoors. Okay, so Adnan, here's the thing. Online banking is much bigger in the Bahamas than it was last year. It's, we're definitely online bankers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And well, definitely is a stretch, but I know that a lot more of us are banking online than we did before, thanks to COVID-19. Is there a right way to access your online website?
Yes.
Is it still incognito?
Still incognito. And for the love of God, please turn on what some would identify as multi-factor authentication, but in truth, it's called two-factor authentication.
Yeah.
Password, credentials, and then your challenge based on a text message, or you press the approval in the application. Once you have that in play, make sure that you have backups within the banking system that you can add certain safety nets that you can get back into your account. Now, other than that, from a user perspective, it really then falls on the bank's responsibility to protect that session and to protect the user from any intrusion that may be attempting to occur or maybe even occurring.
Two-factor authentication, for many who don't know, two-factor authentication is something a lot of us do all the time. I can tell you with Alive, I would go into the app. The app would then tell me to put in my username and my password. And once I do that, then you get another text message from Alive that would give me the copies. It would give me a 4-digit code. I would copy it and place it in. And that would be considered two-factor authentication, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So on a website, like my banking website, what if I don't see that? Where's the two-factor authentication supposed to come from? My side, from my settings, or is it supposed to be from the bank settings?
So the proper procedure in terms of industry, it is supposed to be initiated from the bank's perspective.
Well, what a time.
So when you open up an account, or when online servicing has been issued out to a new client or even existing clients, there should be communication from that entity to say that, hey, we have two-factor authentication For you, it's not turned on. You need to go and turn it on. As a matter of fact, there should be some algorithm in the back end of the banking system that will actually go and query the system and say that, show me which users don't have two-factor authentication turned on, and then pull those users for me. And then we actually send it over to the mail server, and the mail server will then communicate with those users by identifying them by name or whatever it is credential-wise they entered or sign up with the bank account information with, and say that, hey, it's really advisable that you turn on this two-factor authentication. If you're unaware, please come into our banking center. We'll be more than happy to help you, right? Here's some documentation, right, that can help walk you through the process. But if you're not fully capable of doing that, come visit us. We'll be more than happy to do so. This is pretty much just regulatory industry practice across the entirety of the board. So that's their first step in terms of having them be compliant from a security perspective, right? When it comes down to two-factor authentication. The other aspect of it is that you have what are called machine learning algorithms. And what they do is they look and they really gain a sense of who you are, where you go to shop, how often you purchase, what are your transactions on a regulatory basis. And there should be some communication set up, or some system, I should say, set up within the bank, if not already, that says that, hey, listen, I'm going to Abaco, I'm going to the United States, I'm going to XYZ, and this is the period of time from start travel to end travel where I'm going to go. So if you see any transactions from there, please don't block my card. But I still need you to be aware that I am traveling, and don't lock me out of the account entirety, right? So that's another responsibility on the bank's end from that perspective too as well. The other aspect of it is when it comes down to debit cards and really how to really secure and lock them down. In the United States, what they did, everything pertains to 3 specific sets of ID, right? You have your social security number, you have your passport, if that is one that you're going to utilize, your driver's license, and then you would have some type of utility bill that lines the 3 addresses up. And once they have those 3 addresses up, then we can go ahead, initiate the process, and you then validate to us who you are, right? So now that's in play. And what will happen is that they utilize that information to say, to pinpoint, again, your behavioral in terms of analytics. We know that, let's say Nahaja, she goes to Save-A-Lot. She goes to, I just returned, so please forgive me.
She goes to Marsha, she go to Kohl's. Yo,
right.
Pick places, my brother.
And it pretty much learns that behavior based on the vicinity that you're in. So in the back end, really is a business intelligence case that is being built for you profile-wise. And that's how sensitive your information is. Now, let's take that back to the consumer side.
Hold on,
right?
hold that thought, Adnan, because you're getting into it and I feel it. I'm liking where you're going. All your juices, you can tell you IT fellas, then y'all get excited at something else, boy. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. When we come back, Adnan Cartwright here with us, one of the young specialists. He's back home. That's why I just love brilliant people. You know, when they come back home now, y'all need to use these young people as best as you can. Cloud Solutions Architect, and they call him the most valuable, Microsoft most valuable professional. We've got Adnan Cartwright here with us. We'll be back after this. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black on Guardian 96.9 FM and streaming live on Zoom. We'll be back after this.
It's the beginning of the hurricane season, and Fidelity Bank is giving you one less thing to worry about. We're not able to control a storm or its path, but we can prepare for it as much as possible. With every debt consolidation loan, Fidelity is giving away fully loaded hurricane kits valued at $200 with all the hurricane essentials you'll need to weather the unexpected storms of life. It's that easy. Sign up for a debt consolidation loan, open an ASUS savings or fixed deposit, and walk away with a free hurricane kit. At Fidelity, we're committed to helping you through these difficult times. Fidelity, we're good for you.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
You're listening to the Guardian News Network. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Taylor Ferguson. Here's what's making news. Thank you so much for tuning in. Health Minister Brenward Wells expressing sympathy to the families of several women who lost their lives in recent days during or following childbirth. He said the Public Hospitals Authority is investigating the circumstances surrounding those matters. Wells said while the news has not been sitting well with him, he's calling on the Bahamian people to understand that healthcare workers are stretched thin.
But I think the Bahamian people also ought to keep in mind that given where we're at, the staff itself within the medical community throughout the country, both in the public and private sector, is stretched, and hearing the kind of things that we're hearing in regards to the loss of life, it doesn't sit well with them. It certainly doesn't sit well with me.
Shadow Minister for Tourism Glenys Hannah Martin slamming government's plan to reopen the tourism industry. He says the tourism minister's speech on Monday did not take into account the country is in a crisis. Tourism Minister Dionisio de Aguilar laid out government's plan to reopen the sector by early November. He said visitors will have to vacation in place for 14 days or the length of their trip, which he explained is equivalent to quarantine. Hannah Martin asserted this isn't quarantine and questioned how government will enforce this, adding it seems to be a high-risk situation.
You have a couple problems, right? You have hotel workers who are going home every day. How are you going to enforce a tourist leaving the hotel? How are you going to enforce this staying in place? And it's not quarantine. Quarantine is quarantine, and that's not quarantine. And so that is inbuilt with risks. And if you pull it to pieces, it don't make no sense, really. It's just a risky situation that the government is prepared to undertake in the interest of doing something.
That $1.5 billion that was pledged to the Bahamian government back in January to assist with recovery efforts post-Hurricane Dorian has yet to fully come through 8 months later. Back in January, government said it received $1.5 billion in pledges during a United Nations Development Program Hurricane Dorian Pledge Conference. The pledges include technical and intellectual assistance, concessionary loans, grants, and guarantee financing. Outside Cabinet today, Minister for Disaster Preparedness Iram Lewis revealed there has been a tremendous shortfall. That's what's making news. I'm Taylor Ferguson. AP News is coming up next.
Coronavirus update. I'm Tim McGuire with an AP News Minute. The top executives of 9 pharmaceutical companies pledged to maintain the highest ethical and scientific standards in testing and manufacturing of coronavirus vaccines, with the well-being of those getting vaccinated their top priority. Albert Bourla is the CEO at Pfizer.
They will stand with science, and the world is looking to science right now, in particular to vaccine, to make sure that we will bring us to the end of this pandemic.
The pledge comes amid concerns President Trump will try to pressure the Food and Drug Administration to approve a vaccine before it's proven safe and effective. School districts in Kansas and Texas report computer problems as they begin online education. Service was interrupted in Olathe, Kansas, when too many users tried to log in on the district's online teaching system. There were also technical problems in Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas. I'm Tim McGuire.
This is Guardian Radio, your station for up-to-the-minute news, intelligent, interactive, and engaging conversation. 96.9 FM.
Tired of banks forcing you to use technology to bank the way they want you to? Your convenience is important. So no matter what your banking needs, Commonwealth Bank's friendly staff are always available in branch for that personal one-on-one service. But when you choose technology, our online and mobile banking app offers you state-of-the-art functionality. The choice is yours. Commonwealth Bank. Bank the way you want.
Jen and Jason are prepping for the hurricane season at home. Is their insurance enough? They messaged their Massey United Insurance rep to have a chat. Recent renovations increased their property value. They were underinsured. Now their coverage is updated. Be Massey United Insurance ready this hurricane season. Call RMS Insurance Agents and Brokers at 698-7233. Shield Insurance Agents and Brokers at 356-7202 or Freeport Insurance Agents and Brokers at 352-8501 to learn more.
This is Guardian Radio, 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
And we're back. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. We've got Adnan Cartwright in studio on the air with us live today. As always, you can watch us on YouTube. We stream live every day on YouTube. You can go to youtube.com, type in Nahaja Black, and you can subscribe to the channel. Subscribe, and share. Let your friends, family know. We try every day to give you leading conversations, to get into the thick of things as we move the country forward. The goal is to move the country forward. We cannot be the same. And doing any talk show and the conversations remaining the same, how do you do this for a long time? It can be quite a story, quite taxing. I'm sure you guys know that. So I have a young Bahamian here, fresh back home, you know, ready to get back on the ground running. I'm very concerned about young Adnan Cartwright and where he sees his space. But welcome home, my brother. It's good to see you. It's good to have you back. All right. So let's finish let's continue our conversation. Because we were, if I remember correctly, we were talking about, in essence, the protection side of data, right? And you know, where I was talking about how, you know, for me, in my browser, I do work just in the regular state of the browser. I wondered all the time about why would I be incognito? I mean, you know, it sounds like something cheaters do. Like, I just want to hide and make sure you don't know where I am, what I'm doing. So I figured, you know, I better stay in the light. But now what you're saying, Adnan, is that I am not a sinner going incognito. I actually would be the smartest person in my house.
Indeed.
Okay. So now I have this question for you with regard to passwords, right? Lord God, Adnan, everything wants me to change my password every 30 to 60 days. I'm not as young as I used to be. I haven't figured out a great code that when I can switch it every 60, 90 days, I can do a derivative of it and remember it, right? So what I found that I started to do, and didn't realize it until I started to do some cleaning, was that I save everything in my browser that's not incognito. Everything in my browser. And I realized it's like over six, it's probably about, depending on the website, it's probably about 30 odd passwords, depending on the website. And I know you're going to tell me that I should get rid of all of that.
Indeed, you need to get into each browser and clean house. You cannot allow ease of accessibility to compromise your security. You're freely giving information away, not just to your session, but now to the entirety of the account. You are what we call a hacker's dream.
Oh, thank God. Well, listen. You keep talking. Let me clean my browser.
It is that type of individual from a social engineering perspective we attack. So
I'm cleaning up all my stuff now.
So you Firefox, Google Chrome, yeah, store your passwords there. We'll get it. So what they're doing too, they're building a repository too as well of past, present, and possibly future passwords that they can utilize, which in this case is a good thing to help increase security. But black hats, they're looking at that like that's a gold mine. And what they do, they mine that data. And what they do with that information is they build what is called a brute force attack, or a dictionary attack is what I should say. The dictionary attack has all of your passwords, so you use your credentials in every form because you're freely given it. What I'm doing now with that brute force attack is trying to see which variation works.
Interesting.
So you have to be careful with that. Even with those third-party applications that say, hey, store your credentials in what they consider a vault.
Exactly.
I have an issue with that. Reason being is because a vault is supposed to be locked with a key. But the problem with that is that I don't have the key.
Someone else has the key.
Bingo. And I'm now depending on their capabilities to protect that key.
Which has all of your treasures in it, right? So it's okay. I'm glad you brought that up because that's what I started to do, right? And so realizing now I had too much information just on a browser that can easily be attacked. I go and put these things in a vault. Now you're telling me, Adnan, that all of my thinking I was ahead of the curve, that might not be helpful either. So then what is the solution again? What is the solution for me and for Bahamians abroad across the way?
You remember the days when we could have rattled off telephone numbers?
Man, listen, you just sound like every other IT person I know. Now you're going to tell me, Adnan, I need to remember these things?
You have to.
So much stress.
It's going to sound antiquated, this portion of it, but some old measures you just can't beat.
Remember it.
Remember it.
IT professionals, I have a gentleman, Mr. Sweeting, right? He doesn't call himself a white hat. He does not call himself a white hat. But whenever he comes on the show for that purpose, he's a white hat that day. And what he says to me is that your password should be at minimum 10 characters, at minimum 10 characters.
At this point, from somebody who knows what they're doing,
yeah,
it doesn't matter how long your password is. They really don't care. If I wanted to breach you, you and I are pretty much getting acquainted with one another, right?
Yes.
So phishing attacks are for individuals who don't have any contact, right?
Mm-hmm.
Social attacks are for individuals who engage with one another. So if I know that my responsibility is to breach security at a specific target, I would find the weakest link in the chain, so to say. And what I would do, I would befriend that individual, pretty much get a sense of what their job title is. People love to brag about their titles. I love to listen.
Right.
And it will allow me to start my recon in that regard. That's what I'm actually doing. And so from that recon, I like to target secretaries because executives, they're lazy. Let's be honest. Secretaries pretty much have all the information on the executives.
Right.
So if I can get buddy with the secretary and say, hey, check out this email I just said, it was kind of funny, or hey, I'm following up with this. Can you validate this file for me? Now, Excel with macros enabled is a beautiful, beautiful thing. You will look at
Most people don't know that macros are enabled with anything in Microsoft Office.
Correct. And so within that macro file, I can tuck in a little bit of cryptography, or maybe even put in some malicious code hidden within an image that when you click it and you open it, it'll execute my code. Now,
really?
In Windows 7 and Windows 7 and up, you have what is called an in-memory program that's built into all of Microsoft's operating system called PowerShell. PowerShell will allow me to get to an elevated privilege. Given that certain administrative rights are in play, I'll be able to get in, and then from there, I'll sit. And the reason why I'll sit is because I want to gain a schematic. I value my breach. This is what true attackers do. And so I want to start building a schematic of the entirety of the network. What IP address and what DNS name do you talk to for mail, for web, for file and folder storage, for database accessibility? Now that I have that, because that is what we call a hard change within the infrastructure, nobody's going to pull a database server down like that. Nobody's going to pull a mail server down like that. Right. So now I have the internal IP address, and I now want to see and start testing those privileges. So now here begins my lateral movement.
Well, your privileges, when you talk about privileges, meaning users, right?
So it's on that computer. And if that computer is not what we call domain joined by rights as a workgroup computer, I'll have an extended set of rights, not administrative, but enough to get me to that administrative capability. So if a domain is not in play, you're in problems. If the domain is a .local domain, which I'll leave that for another day.
It's just the machine that you're on.
That's all day long. That's you're making it easy.
But that's
go ahead.
Adnan, what you're saying to me, if you're just tuning in, Adnan Cott right here, IT specialist, ethical hacker. I'm sure. Are you a computer forensic technician as well?
Yes.
Okay, and so you can see where breaches lie and follow the trail. You create you look for the weaknesses, etc., in systems. How easy is it? How compromised are Bahamian systems? Because I saw a government website the other day, Adnan, and you know what it told me? It told me, stop, don't go here. It isn't secure. And I thought to myself, well, Jesus, and that's the SSL cert. Like, it just expired. We ain't keeping that up to date. I was scared.
So with that, you're pretty much opening up Pandora's box. And unless you have another 4 hours to talk on, it's best to leave that topic of discussion for another day.
No, man, you got to give me something. Give me something, Adnan. How compromised are we? Look, the registrar department at the beginning of this year was breached, right? We went online, and I mean, the people who hacked into the site, into the server, got about 50 odd gigs of data, right? And knowing that it wasn't photos, but data, like words, you can't tell me that it had a lot of files and information. And then it had another breach again this year. So I'm sorry. In 2017, we had one as well, same ministry. I'm not confident, my boy. I'm not confident at all. I'm not confident at all. What is your take on how strong we are? NIB, I'm always concerned about NIB. That's the place with the money, yeah?
So until I can get into the infrastructure to see everything in its entirety, I won't be able to give a full assessment. But listening to what you're saying, there's what we call in the industry an in-tier architecture. It sounds as if though what we call the front end is actually sitting in the untrusted zone.
Yeah.
So all they would need to do from that perspective is move the front end from the untrusted zone, put in play a demilitarized zone, and then enter your trusted zone. And so to give a solution and not just give big words, what you would do in the untrusted zone is have a layer 7 appliance, something like a Barracuda or F5, basically a firewall, but a firewall that has policies in play that is actively looking for specific threats and cross-site injection in terms of URL path-based routing, HTTP communication.
Well, you're speaking in words that people don't know, man, Adnan. You're killing me here.
So
break it down for me.
So to put it simply, all I'm saying is put a guard dog to the gate.
Got it.
And make sure that guard dog is well fed so that whoever is coming in, they can sniff it out. If it gets past that guard dog, then you need to have a security guard with a gun. That's your demilitarized zone. And from there, you would have scans that will identify if it's something like a DDoS attack, right? Something that's meant to flood. But the real purpose of a DDoS attack is to bring down the network that would allow that type of traffic to come in to really start penetrating it from that perspective. Because you have the security system busy. That's what you're really doing. You're flooding so much so it can't scan my traffic, so I'll just skid on by. That's where that comes into play.
Got it.
Now, if I can skid on by, I'm past that gate. And from there, I can start utilizing those same dictionary attacks, brute force attacks, just at a general perspective, right? To start getting to see which machines from that aspect I can start targeting. But it's in truth, it's a listening to what you're saying. It's a simple fix.
Yeah, that's why for me, that's where I get concerned, Adnan. That for me, where I get concerned is that I'm looking at things that should be simple fixes, but they persist. So therefore, if simple issues persist, how can we trust when there are major issues that you have the capacity to deal with things that are bigger? If I can't trust you to draw blood, and you can you call yourself a surgeon? I can't trust you to draw blood. So, ladies and gentlemen, I feel like we have a problem. For someone who's come back home now, Adnan, let me ask you this question because I know we're running out of time. For someone who's come back home with this level of expertise, where do you see your space? Where do you see your place in this space? Because I wonder if your capacity is much larger than the spaces that are available. So where is your space? Where do you fit?
Digital transformation and assistance to helping to evolve the country into that space.
What does digital transformation mean to you?
Digital transformation is moving from a legacy model, meaning that from servers to, in truth, what the industry terms as serverless. So there's realistically 5 tiers or 5 types that you can actually pick yourself in. One could be IaaS, which means infrastructure as a service. What you do is pretty much just take servers, but you virtualize them. So you're no longer depending on the physical hardware anymore for one system to move. Now, and it makes it easier to move and migrate and to have business continuity in play. That's what IaaS does, right? So where you would hear a system may be going down, you would see that it would only be down for about 30 seconds, maybe to a minute at most because of the failing over capability within that model. Then you have what is called PaaS, or Platform as a Service. And this is where you really embrace what we call cloud technology. Amazon, Microsoft Azure, GCP, that is where you can start looking to really engage in that type of methodology. In that model, what you're really focusing on is specifically a containerized hosting platform where you can just deploy your code, have it executed, run, and scale whenever it needs to scale or demand in that regard. Then you have SaaS, right? Software as a service, Office 365. I just pay somebody, I subscribe to their service, and boom, I get access to the software. I don't have to worry about server. I don't have to worry about security. I just have to worry about the data, and we're all set and good to go. Then you have CaaS, which is containers as a service. And what that does, that reduces the attack surface dramatically.
Containers as a service.
Containers as a service. So when people talk about containers, Docker or Mesosphere, these are the industry leaders when it comes down to that technology space. And look at it from this perspective, right? If you look at a server, right? And you look at big pieces of the server, forget the physical hardware, look at the operating system, how much space that takes up. That's the operating system now you have to secure. Then you have what is called the hypervisor layer. And unbeknown to a lot of users here in the Bahamas, if you're utilizing a 64-bit version of Windows 10, it comes with a hypervisor layer, and that's another layer that needs to be secured. Then
hypervisor layer.
Correct. It allows us to virtualize instances of other machines physically on that machine.
So what they call it, a partition? So you able to?
No, it is not a partition. It actually leverages the hard drive, the CPU, as well as the memory and network, and it emulates it as if though it is a physical computer.
Really?
So when you look at, say, a Google data center, Microsoft, Facebook, they have a bunch of virtual machine instances that actually run on one server. So one server will actually run anywhere between, and I'm lowballing it, about 100 to 500 different operating systems or virtual machines in that regard.
One server?
One server.
That's insane. Okay, let me ask you this. If you're just tuning in, Adnan Cartwright here with us on the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. Ethical hacker, computer forensic technician, virtual IT specialist. I think that's close to Adnan. I can't remember. What was the title again?
They've titled me as a cloud solutions architect.
There you go. See, that's fancier than what I was saying. So here is where, because I like what you say, digital transformation, right? Mm-hmm. In the space that we are today, mm-hmm. How far are we from being digitally transformed?
You're not far, to be quite honest. If the technology itself has rapidly increased, whereas that you can go from physical to virtual without any downtime. So what? Yeah. So what we can do, what I do typically when I go into a client, I do an assessment and I ask for the maintenance window. Maintenance window means that where you would normally do your security patches, your backup your backups, etc. And in that maintenance window, I would look and see how long or how much time I have, and I would work with that set time to see how much conversions I can do. So we would back up the machine, then we would shut it down because nobody's utilizing it at a time. Now, at that point, we get into, we make sure that everything's good with the hardware. We make sure everything's good in terms of the integrity of the operating system and data. And once that's validated, we turn the machine back. Well, the data and operating system integrity is validated once we turn the machine back on. The hardware is validated with the machine off. The reason being is because you don't want any corruption to be in the migration process. So that will be your driver sets for the old legacy systems, etc. So this is what we call a lift and shift, right? And we do this in flight. So we virtualize that instance with software that we have. We have that, I kid you not, on a thumb drive, on an external drive, and then we actually push that into either a new hosting server or we push that to the cloud.
But that takes into account that data is already inputted.
Correct.
So if we have data inputted somewhere, now, so with moving to this virtual space, right? Moving to this cloud space, is there any security concerns on a cloud space?
So that was the typical concern back in the day. And when I say back in the day, I would say realistically about 6 years ago. Microsoft is one of the companies that has done an outstanding job in transparency. And not just in transparency of how they handle the data, but how they handle the data based on its classification and industry. So once you look at cloud, industry term it to be polynimbus in terms of the enterprise. And all polynimbus means is many clouds, right? So when you look at the security, Microsoft is betting the farm. Amazon is betting the farm to say that we won't be breached, right? Okay. So they have put in specific services to ensure that you control your data, you secure your data, and there's some shared responsibility on the type of model you look to operate in, whether it be IaaS, PaaS, SaaS, CaaS, the same ones we just went over.
Someone asks here, let me make sure that we're good here. Someone asks, what if you want to have copies of your hardware as an additional backup? Some of us are extra cautious.
So what I would recommend to them, there are these options they can take. You can utilize Microsoft online services, specifically OneDrive. Now, if you're security conscious with OneDrive, you can upload the files and it'll be open, but you would have to go through a two-factor authentication. To take that step further, in that OneDrive space, you have what is called a personal vault. And that personal vault, only you can unlock and lock. And you can put whatever sensitive information you have in that vault. So that's one route. Yes.
Oh, so let me ask you this. So with the OneDrive, because I think everybody uses, most of us use Windows, OneDrive you got right there, right? Can I, since there's a vault in there too, can I just do all of my passwords out and put it in the vault?
Nahaja.
That's a no. Adnan, I have too many. I have too many, Adnan.
You're introducing a layer of vulnerability.
I thought the vault was going to be safer.
So the vault is safer. In order for me to gain access to that vault, I would need to have your username, your password, and then I would need to have your personal phone to gain access to that vault.
There you go.
Now, on top of that phone, it does not send a text message, which is considered to be an RSA token, right? Like 4 or 6-digit code.
Right.
There's an application that is designed, an authenticator app that says that you download onto your phone. It's safe and secure. Its only job is to authenticate requests that has been initiated by your account. And so it'll say, hey, we noticed that Nahaja, you're trying to log in from an unfamiliar location. We know this ain't you. We just need you to validate that for us.
Yes.
And it'll show you location and all, and you can decline it altogether.
Yeah.
So that's one route they can take in terms of storing their data in the cloud in terms of a backup copy. The other option is that if they don't want to put it in the cloud, they can utilize a USB drive. Now follow me here. In Windows 10, you have what is called BitLocker encryption. So when you put that drive into your computer and you right-click that drive, you'll see an option that says turn on BitLocker. And what that is going to do is going to ask you to generate a certificate that will actually be that authority to decrypt the information, or you can password protect it. I would recommend that they go ahead and utilize the certificate and then place that certificate within the vault.
And the certificate would be?
The certificate is that thumbprint that's not a password. So the attacker will be looking to try and guess a password, but there is no password.
And BitLocker can do this for you?
BitLocker can do that for you. It's built into Windows 10.
Really? Because I have BitLocker. Obviously, Windows 10 is built in. Correct. But I didn't realize that was that level of security. That's something that you pay for, though. That's a premium support.
No, that's built in.
Oh, fascinating. No, that's great news. Okay, Adnan Cartwright here. Coming to some of my last questions here, Adnan. Okay, so we're moving now into securing your data, your business data, whatnot. If I'm a business owner, and let's say a small, medium-sized business owner, you mentioned something about a local server, right? What are some of the top, if you were to give some of the worst behaviors of small and medium-sized businesses when it comes to web security, what would they be?
Okay. One, the server is always out in the open the majority of the times. Because that server is out in the open, a USB port is exposed. A USB port can then be utilized to inject some type of criminal activity if I can distract the individual to initiate that. And the USB only needs to be plugged in, I would say, about for 5 seconds. Literally, right?
Wow.
So after recognition, so I would say best case scenario, 10 seconds based on, we've seen it done in 5 seconds depending on how fast the hardware is. But with older hardware, you would need a little bit more time. That's the reality there. The other aspect of it is that when it comes down to security policies and best practices, one, we know the password needs to change every 30 or 60 days. Two, you can't utilize the same password in any combination. Three, there needs to be complexity to the password. Four, there needs to be immutable capabilities to the platform, meaning that you have an identity provider, meaning that you have a domain set up that you can go to as an authoritative source. Hey, I'm Nahaja. Well, you say you're Nahaja, prove to me that you're Nahaja.
Right.
Here's my username and credential, and you can see that I'm a part of the domain. Well, okay, I don't care. Where's your certificate to prove to me that you are who you say you are? Well, here's my certificate in terms of my client machine. Okay, cool. Where's your user certificate? Oh, here it is. Okay, you're Nahaja. We can get into the system now.
Good, but that's multiple layers.
Exactly. That's multi-factor authentication.
Huh, so not two.
No.
Two is small fry, that's basic.
Correct. You can get so sophisticated to the point, whereas that we had clients where they would come into work, the password was useless. So we had the passwords embedded into what is called a TPM, a trusted platform module, which is a USB drive, but was designed with an RSA token. So they will plug that device in, And then it would say, hey, you're Nahaja. Cool. Here's your digit in terms of your RSA token, right? Your code. You put that in. Cool. Now give me your fingerprint. And you put your fingerprint in. Cool. There were some government entities that we had to work with where we had to use the fingerprint as well as facial recognition.
Yeah.
So,
and that's security.
Right. It all depends on the level that you're looking to get. I mean, you can really get downright nasty and have the files themselves become self-protecting.
Let me ask you, Adnan, what type of business? Okay, so let's say I'm a retailer. What level of security should I have?
As a retailer, you're talking specifically like a shop?
Yeah. So let's say I'm a brick and mortar. I am a small business. I sell clothing, right? So I'm a clothing retailer.
Okay.
Most people will just look. Before VAT, a lot of people apparently weren't even using point of sale systems.
Correct.
So that was a shocker to me. But then, now that we are in a place of VAT, people are using real computers, point of sale systems, and are backing up on the same machine, by the way, that is their point of sale machine and no other external backup. But that's another story. What type of security, and when should we start thinking about security? Just when we start doing credit card transactions? When should we start thinking?
No, your security should be first and foremost before the business even opens.
Talk to. What type of security? What type of security?
So one, who is going to access my business, right? If I'm online, what type of geography am I going to allow communications? Is it going to be just the United States? Is it just going to be the Bahamas? Is it going to be Brazil? Is it going to be Australia, etc.? What you can do there is a terminology called traffic manager. And if I only want traffic to originate, say, from the Bahamas, specifically Nassau, then that's the only traffic that I only want to gain or receive into my network. What that does, that drastically cuts down the attack surface severely.
Interesting.
So now I know where the attacks are coming from. Now, you may be asking, because you got some smart people out there, well, what if I utilize a VPN?
Right.
A VPN can mask my identity and then have me look like I'm coming from Nassau, but I'm really coming from Sweden. All fine, well and good. And that's why you have implementations within the firewall level, like Network Watcher, that can actually gain that packet. And within that packet, it shows where the true origination of that traffic was initiated.
Oh, so that's why Netflix catches me every time. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Well, I'm kind of sad right now because I can't watch Hulu. Hulu say, hey, you're here.
I know, right?
So until I can get my VPN tunnel up, it is what it is.
It is what it is. I won't tell you any lie. You used to see me trying with one other, so I'm like, got the VPN. And I'm like, nope, we see you. Like, how dare you?
Now, I do want to point out something with VPN technology. I personally do not trust third parties. As a matter of fact, I don't trust anybody who encrypts my traffic.
Huh.
I didn't encrypt.
A lot of us use it though.
Yeah. So WhatsApp, my wife can tell you, I had it off my phone for a long time.
Because you don't trust their end-to-end encryption?
Or
you just don't trust Facebook like everybody else shouldn't trust Facebook.
So what Facebook is doing is this. Facebook is actually building a business intelligence case to show that, hey, I can tell where certain users are at any given time, what products to place in what neighborhood, how often they can purchase it, and then they sell that information to third parties. So good example, Coca-Cola, even here in the Bahamas, put it on Blue Hill Road, put a bunch of Coke sodas on Blue Hill Road, because the demographic there shows that we have abundance in terms of purchasing power there. That's why your data is so important. It shows me what to put near you and how to maximize my return on investment. It's money making.
Someone asks, would you be willing to teach this stuff? This is a lot. They're enjoying it. Are you, I would suggest, Adnan, you set up a Zoom class and register, and folks pay their little fee, and voila, just throw that out there.
That is the plan in terms of an educational facility to have up and running to get us up where we need to be. For the digital transformation that the Bahamas needs, there needs to be a lot of Bahamians that need to be empowered in terms of writing code, but not just writing simplistic code. I'm talking stuff, and I'm going to get technical here. Please forgive me. They're going to need to know Python. I'm battling with my son right now. He's 12 years old, and he's actually writing Python. I notice when he rushes through it, he doesn't get the algorithm in play. But if he takes his time, he can write the code and get the functions for a game that I have him pretty much executing specific actions with the characters.
Yeah.
You're going to need some security people. You're going to need some developers in terms of operations. App dev, there's a lot here. There's a lot of potential here I see, and I'm eager to get started.
Yeah, and when you say potential, you see potential because of the ceiling. We're so far from the ceiling. There's just so much room to grow and expand. Is that why you say potential?
When I say potential, I see people who are exceptional. And I don't know if exceptional is the right word. They're brilliant. Bahamian people are some gifted, talented individuals. They're skilled, man. And it only would just take an individual just to show them what it is that they need to do, and they'll run with it. And that's what I've noticed here, more so than in the States. One of the responsibilities in the States, I had to train different companies. I had to train some Microsoft employees too as well, and they weren't there. But it's sad to say, when you start looking at the Indians, the Chinese, the Russians, everybody who was not American,
they got it. Just ran with it.
That's it.
And then you see room. So you see room here that we can do the same.
So here's the challenge that we have before us. Economies around the world are failing. Technology is the advancement. Now is the time for the Bahamas to look at it from a global perspective and start developing solutions that will impact the world. That's the opportunity that we have today.
Yeah. So when you said, because this is something that I said at the top of the show with regard to technology and infrastructure and our space, we need to pivot. And we've taken too long to realize that we are brilliant. I said it earlier in the show that Bahamians, when an American says, I love the Bahamian spirit, I love our ingenuity, they love how, we hustle, we know how to learn and move with the information that we've learned to build. When I look at it, Adnan, and that's why I was glad you joined me today, we need to have these conversations more and more, because the lingo must become part of us, understanding that when we're talking about virtual learning, it shouldn't be the discussion on how much bandwidth or, the discussion on if we're comfortable. We should be talking about not just learning on a technical device, but technical learning.
Correct.
You understand what I mean? You want to add something to that?
Yeah, so one of the things I'll add to you to piggyback on that point, what we would do when training different companies, we would give them an hour and a half of learning. You got what you learned? Okay, good. Then we had the platform already set up where we just let them go hands-on, but the hands-on was guided. This is the application you're going to build, and you're going to build it from scratch. You got an hour and a half to get it done. And the majority of them finished it. Okay, ready to go? We go for another hour and a half. From there, we break for lunch. Come back, you remember what you learned? You ain't sleepy, right? Let's put it into practice. You cannot teach an individual all day, lecture, 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 lecture. They would only retain, they say 20%.
That's right.
Our students at that point was only retaining 5%. And these are
I only knew 5.
and these are grown adults, and these are engineers within the field who had to come to the class to get trained, recertified, to keep their jobs. And that's the other part of the conversation I would like to bring to the table. We need to start having a new outlook in terms of getting our individuals certified so that they can go out, go to India, go to Australia, go wherever you need to go. Hey, I have the certification. Here's my experience. This is what I did, and start building out systems around the world.
You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. Very happy that we had Adnan Cartwright here joining us, talking. Adnan, I had someone say, man, listen, you don't need me on the show anymore. This guy knows exactly what he's talking about. This is a very respected IT professional that I know. You know, that it's very interesting, and I'm excited. My good friend C. Allen is saying, you know, he's liking what you're saying. And a lot of folks are very much enjoying the show today, Adnan. So I want you to consider strongly doing some of these classes as soon as possible, my boy. Because folks want to learn. And they want to learn how to protect, you know, as a small business owner. The fortunate thing was my husband is in IT. So for him, the concern was always protecting, right? Protecting data. He's still an IT guy. And so all he does is ensure that data is protected in the highest levels that they can protect it, right? And what he doesn't know, he'll go out and learn. And so for me, information technology is very much an interesting topic because, you know, I get to see it and live it and whatnot. But there's a lot that we don't know, myself and all of my listeners, on the simple bits of protection, right? So, because I can't tell I just told all of the Bahamas that, you know, I moved to a password saver app thingy-majiggy, right? I can't tell him I move all, you know, that most of my stuff was saved in the browser. Now he knows. And I'm sure Randy's going to call him and tell him, boy, here Nahaja spill all our business on the AI. Randy, I'm watching you, Randy. But when we look at this, Adnan, the progress, how we move forward with information technology is huge in this country. And I wondered, and this is the last question I have for you, I wondered, when you heard that we were building a tech hub in Grand Bahama, what did you think of it? What was the first thing that came to mind? And then as you saw the process or whatever that was unfold, what did you think when you were watching it happen?
I was ecstatic when they had mentioned that the Bahamas would be a tech hub, but I was deeply saddened to see the ball dropped. And it still can be recovered.
What would a tech hub look like?
Say again, please.
What would a tech hub look like?
A tech hub would look like various technological companies that now is the main industry of the Bahamas. Meaning that when India need application security, they come to us. When America need applications to be developed, they come to us. Systems to be built, they come to us. That is the opportunity that we have before us. Unbeknown to many of the listeners, America don't build nothing.
America doesn't build nothing?
They are the greatest importer.
So how would we, then it leads me to the question, how would we build it though? Are we building it? Is no, tell me, you answer that.
So how you would build that technology hub, you need to start with what we're doing now, and you need to start by educating the people, getting them up to speed, getting them hands-on, getting them into the field, and having them go out and be a productive citizen, not just from a local perspective, but from a global perspective, right? So the mindset needs to be global first. Start identifying issues and problems in the world, and now start developing solutions that will fix them. That's where we are right now. And that is the opportunity that lies before us.
Someone, you know what, I have some people saying that they want to book you for an event. So listen, Adnan, we'll stay in touch for sure. Because this is where, again, where we are, where we need to be. This conversation, when we talk about coding, by the way, folks, Adnan, you mentioned something wonderful, and I'm glad that you did, about your son, 12-year-old, learning on Python and whatnot, right? Entrepreneur.com, you can go to their website, entrepreneur.com, has courses, right? And they have one course that is all about coding, and it's about 10 different lessons on 10 different types of, well, not different types, but, learning how to code from beginner down. And you can also go to udemy.com. They have great courses there. But one of the things is learning the language, eh? Yeah. How do you want to play in the game or visit this country and you don't want to learn the language, or we don't even know what language to speak or what language to learn? And if we're talking about information technology, if we're talking about being a tech hub in the Bahamas, like you said, Adnan, the people should be able to speak a language. And there are multiple languages, but there's a main one. Jesus, we don't even know what HTML, how, just, it's a fascinating thing. And I think it's very important that not everybody's going to learn. This isn't everybody's gift, but it should be something that as a fundamental and a foundational subject, just like our Bahamian history, we should be learning the language of, coding. What are your thoughts?
Correct. I always like to tell my wife and everybody who would listen from a technological standpoint, we're no longer in the digital age. We're in the age of the Internet of Things. Everything connects to the internet. Your mobile devices, your laptops, they're a given, right? Your Xbox, some fridges, some microwaves, everything connects to the internet. And that is the space that we need to start developing for and moving forward on.
You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. Adnan Cartwright, thank you so much, my brother. It was a pleasure having you on the show. For those folks who want to reach out to you, I will definitely have them connect with me. If you want to reach out to Adnan, I don't know, Adnan, if you want to give out your number online, on air, because you're a security guy. So, but if you want to, that's fine. If not, they can always email you. If you want them to email you, how they can book you, feel free to let us know your email address, or they can visit my page and figure out how to contact you from there. But do you wish to give us your email address?
Yes, I'll share that information with you. But they won't find me on Facebook. They won't find me on Twitter. They won't find me on Instagram. Not on social media.
Is that a security thing too? I know it's a security thing, isn't it?
Yes.
It's really, yes. I should just come off. What if it's my job? What if I need it? And see, that's the guilt.
Then you need to create a fictitious entity that facilitates that task.
We'll talk after the show.
Let them mind that.
Well, we have to talk after the show, Adnan.
No problem.
I need to get my life in order, my boy. Got to get this in order. Okay, so you said your email address. You want me to give that to them off air?
Yeah, I'm actually going to enter it into the chat now.
Okay, good. You do that for me, and then we will share that to all of you. You can visit my Facebook page, message me on the side if you want to get Adnan Cartwright to do any of your chatting or your speaking or whatnot. Please do. You can message me at facebook.com/Nahaja Black Show, and you can go into the Facebook Messenger there to get his email. Oh, and I know, Adnan, I'm just saying Facebook Messenger, and your whole skin probably crawled, right? I'm sorry, guys. Adnan, thanks so much, my friend. Have a great day, and we'll have to do this again.
You too. Take care.
All righty. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. Everyone, I hope that you are doing well. I hope that you enjoyed the show as much as I enjoyed hosting the show and having Adnan join us to talk about, this wonderful topic today in terms of digitization and the digital space where we are, getting yourself more secured, learning about your environment, your digital environment, securing yourself. You can listen to this again on YouTube. You can go to my YouTube page, YouTube channel, and you can listen to it again. You can share and subscribe as much as you can. We've got a lot of great shows for you this week as we continue. The goal is to stay informed, everyone. The goal is to learn. The goal is to pivot, to know where to move to take the Bahamas further and to the future, or in the present, for God's sake. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, live here, Guardian 96.9 FM, and sitting plumply in my house. Everyone, take care. We'll see you next time tomorrow. Bye-bye.